The question often comes up, do you need a ham license to use FPV gear? And the answer to that, of course, depends on what country you're in, but the answer is generally yes. And I can talk specifically about the United States, which is where I am. In the United States, if you are going to use FPV gear, you almost always need a ham license, a technician license specifically, which is the lowest tier of ham license you can get. The exception to that is if you're using a so-called FCC certified transmitter, like the one that's up on my screen right now. And you might say, well, first of all, isn't the 5.8 gigahertz band supposed to be unlicensed? Or shouldn't I be able to operate there without a license? And there's a long answer to that question, but the short answer is that you're only allowed to operate unlicensed in that band if you meet certain restrictions, which is why, for example, you can use a Wi-Fi device like a Wi-Fi access point in your house. You don't need to get a ham license to operate a Wi-Fi access point in your house. And one of the reasons for that is that that access point is FCC certified, much like this transmitter. And another reason for that is that that device meets certain restrictions in terms of it transmits using a digital modulation technique and so forth. And now we're getting into the long answer, which we'll just set aside and leave alone. So if you're going to operate a FPV video transmitter in the 5.8 gigahertz band, and definitely if you're going to be operating in any of the other bands, like 1.3 gigahertz, which is definitely licensed, you need to have a ham license. So why wouldn't you just get one of these FCC certified transmitters? And the answer is because they're terrible. They're terrible. Don't get them. One reason they're terrible is that they are expensive for what you get. This is a $45 transmitter. You can get a TS5832 transmitter for about 12 bucks from myrcmart.com, myrcmart.com. You can get them all over the place. This is, you'll notice that this does not give its transmit power. And sometimes you'll see these listed as 25 milliwatt transmit power. I'm going to show you how to find out if that's actually true or not. And that's actually the real interesting thing that I think is in this video. So that what they have bad transmit power, and also the antenna is directly connected. It's direct soldered. One of the requirements that comes with an FCC certified device is that it be hard for the user to modify it. So you don't have an antenna connector here that you can screw on and off. And the reason for that is that the FCC says the person operating this is not ham licensed. They don't know the ins and outs of RF. Therefore, we're not going to let them screw around with it too much. We're not going to let you take off this antenna and put a different high-powered antenna on that might cause you to violate restrictions that you don't even know about. So you can't swap the antenna on this. And that's, so fine. Okay, it's a circular polarized antenna. It's probably a fine antenna. What happens when you break it? What happens when you crash your quadcopter and you break this antenna? Whoops. Well, your transmitter is garbage now too, unless you feel like soldering on a new antenna. Oh, but you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to modify this device. You can't solder on a replacement antenna. You are not licensed for that. Okay, but the main reason you should never buy one of these transmitters, these FCC certified transmitters, is that the power output is terrible. How terrible is it? Let's explore and find out, because it's not anywhere on this page, but I'll show you where it is. Because this device is FCC certified, it has an FCC identifier. And you can look up the paperwork for this device in the FCC database, which is this page right here. Now, if you don't know the FCC identifier for the device, it can be a little tough to find it. You can go to advanced search and you can search for like the applicant name, like you could search for FatShark, and let's just see what we find if I do that. Oh, here we go. We got a couple grants from FatShark. Okay, and some FCC identifiers. Interesting. Hang on though. If you have the device, if you physically own the device, the FCC ID will always be printed on the device, or if you can find a sufficiently detailed photo of the device, the FCC ID you may be able to get it. And here's the FCC ID 2ABYQFSV2461. Let's see if that just happens to be one of the two we found. 2461, there it is. Okay, so now we have found the FCC records for this device. By the way, you could also just have searched for this number on that original page. Some manufacturers will have a ton of devices, and it'll be really hard to find the one you're looking for unless you know the actual FCC ID. It turns out that most of FatShark's devices are not FCC certified. You need a ham license to operate them. You are certified. The operator is certified to not break the rules. In this case, since the operator is not expected to be certified, the device has to be certified. And that's why FatShark just has this one, or in this case, two devices. So let's go ahead and click Detail and see what we got. And one of the things that we've got is the, let's see, I'm not sure if we want the test report or the RF exposure report. By the way, notice that the user manual is here as well. When you have an FCC certified device, the manufacturer has to submit the user manual for the device to the FCC. And therefore, if you have an FCC certified device that you cannot find the user manual for anywhere online, you can probably go to the FCC database and find it there. So that's a helpful tip for you. Let's take a look at what we've got here in the RF exposure and the test report. And what I'm specifically looking for is the emission information. Radiated emission method, field strength of the fundamental signal. This is starting to look promising. And here we go. Here is the actual information for peak and average emissions put out by the device. Now, here's why this is interesting. Notice that the limit, the absolute maximum that could be emitted, is 94 dBu volts per meter. Okay? And here are the actual values that were put out, which are all below 94 dBu volts per meter. Now, that's fine, but what is that in milliwatts? Because dBu volts per meter is not a common thing that we use as amateurs. It's a more esoteric measurement. So what we really want to do then is we want to convert 94 dBu volt per meter into milliwatts. So let's see if we can figure out how to do that. All right, here's a radiated power calculator. And we are going to put in dBu volts per meter at 3 meters. That's the test we're using. We have 94 dBu volts per meter at 3 meters. Go. And that is equivalent to 0.45 milliwatts. Not 45 milliwatts, not 0.45 watts, 0.45 milliwatts. What was the actual power that was put out? It was actually between 90, let's say 91 to 94 dBu. So let's see, 91, is it that much different? 0.2. So we've got, this device is putting out between 0.2 and 0.4 milliwatts. That's less than 1 milliwatt. Compare that to the weakest transmitter that is normally used, like if you're at a race where it's really crowded and they want to really limit interference, you'll go all the way down to 25 milliwatts transmit power. Much more common to see 200 to 250 milliwatt transmit power, and as high as maybe 600 milliwatts in the 5.8 gigahertz band if you're flying by yourself and you want to really punch through the trees and stuff. 0.2, less than 1 milliwatt. That's why. You look here, it says a usable range of approximately 200 meters is achieved in your dreams. That is under the optimal best case scenario. You're going to get 200 meters. You're going to get way less than 200 meters off of this thing. And that's why you shouldn't buy one of these. You should go get your ham license and get a proper non-FCC certified transmitter that outputs a decent amount of transmit power, because the actual output power of these FCC certified ones cannot exceed 94 dBu volts per meter, equals 0.46 milliwatts. And when you see one of these things and it says 25 milliwatts, know that they're lying. It's not true. It can't be true. The FCC wouldn't certify it if it put out 25 milliwatts. All right. Well, I hope that was educational. Hope that was interesting. I think this is a really good resource. This FCC lookup, anybody who does RF needs to know that this exists, because a lot of times manufacturers don't print specs for these devices. It's hard to find them sometimes. If it has an FCC ID, you can find everything you need to know about it on the FCC database. Just look it up. Hope that was helpful, and happy flying.